Let's talk crochet. Hey folks, it's Mary, aka MercyTriumphs, and this is my channel Slow Crochet. This is episode 058, and today I am checking in to talk about the things that I've been crocheting, any new works in progress, any finished objects, and just a general kind of yarny check-in on what I've been up to in the world of crochet. So if you're new here, welcome. I'm really glad you're here. Feel free to stick around. I post all kinds of random different things about what is happening in my brain in regards to yarn and crochet, as well as these weekly check-ins. So first thing is first, what am I wearing on my head? This is a finished object from this week. There are several hats and stitch patterns and tutorials and all kinds of things that I've been wanting to do, and this is one of them. This is the No Rhyme or Reason beanie by Crystal over at Bag O' Day Crochet, and I am using this vintage Red Heart Super Saver in the color Aran Fleck. So it's kind of the colors of a birch bark or kind of a tweedy effect. It has some black and gray and kind of a medium brown mixed into all of that kind of off-white acrylic. For this hat, I used a size K hook. This is a 6.5 millimeter, and I used my vintage boy hook. So for the hat, I did follow Crystal's tutorial, except one thing I have noticed, and I'm sure she doesn't mind, she loves it when you take her instructions and make it your own. For her hat, she started with a plain, just regular increase, kind of flat disc for the crown of her hat. The one thing that I changed was, instead of doing an increase where you just do 2 double crochets in the one place where you're going to increase, instead of just that, I did a double crochet in the top of that stitch, and then I double crocheted around the post. So I ended up starting out with some ribbing here. And by the way, if you hear some children screaming in the background or any kind of sounds, we are having a snowy day here in Nashville, and my children are outside with my husband, and they are sledding and having a great time. And I thought now is the best time for me to go ahead and jump in here before it gets wild and loud and excited and hot chocolate demands are made. So we'll do this now. So yes, I followed her pattern, and it did make it a little bit smaller of a crown, which is one of the things I was going for. The other thing that I changed is when she called for some rows of double crochet, I actually double crocheted in between. So the first round I did regular, and then instead of double crocheting right into the stitch like you normally would, I double crocheted in between. So I hope you can see kind of the pattern change there, how it makes it just a little bit shorter. And then I did the same thing here at the bottom again. One of the things that I've noticed with Crystal's hats is she likes to make them so they sit really far down, kind of almost covering her eyebrows. But for me, I like mine a little bit shorter. I like to have a little bit of space up here in my hat. So I thought by modifying how I was doing the double crochets, that would just kind of shave off, you know, that little quarter of an inch, that little half an inch. That would make a difference in the overall length and help it to fit me in my way better. The last thing that I did to change, and instead of doing ribbing at the bottom, I again just did those double crochets kind of staggered, and then I didn't do a round of single crochet, but instead I decided to slip stitch, and I alternated going in the front loop and the back loop all around. And so I still did get a nice finished edge in my opinion. It pulled it in just a little bit, so I felt like it would stay on my head a lot better. So I did have a lot of fun following this tutorial, and it was a joy to make, and I also had fun kind of putting my own spin on it. I'm going to keep this hat on my head for the rest of the time here. The next project I want to talk about is a work in progress that I've had going for a couple of weeks now, and that is my Catalina wrap. This is by Two of Wands, and I am making it out of Yarn Bee Baby Bee Sweet Delight in Soft Licorice. And for this one, I am using my Hero Size I 5.5 millimeter hook. And I'll tell you, this is my only standard Hero crochet hook. It was made in the USA, but it's really interesting. I can really feel the difference in that head because it is kind of trapezoidal, and I do feel it almost catching, almost like a point there on the edges of the hook when I'm trying to do my chains or my bobbles. So all that to say, different strokes for different folks, different hooks for different folks. If you find what works for you and enjoy it, and don't have that fear of missing out for some of these vintage or harder to find or more expensive hooks. Just my little 2 cents there. but I am going to persevere with this hook through the end of the shawl. So the end of the shawl has actually come and gone. In fact, it came a couple of rows ago. So the end was actually meant to be here with this final bit of bobble stitches. I know it's black, it's a little bit hard to see, but I am going to continue it on because the pattern did call for a worsted weight, and since I'm using a DK weight and I have a whole other ball of this, I'm just going to continue working the pattern to make it a bit bigger, because as of right now, it's just not going to give me the drape that I want. So I'm going to start to repeat kind of some of these tranches of pattern and see how it goes. What I hope to do next is some of these rib stitches, these front post or back post stitches. I can't remember. I'll do whatever it takes to make it on the right side of the work. Then I'll do another set of this kind of network, and then finally more bobbles. We'll see how far that takes me. If that gives me 3 or 4 inches or maybe even 5 inches, that would be wonderful. And I do plan on going back over the edges pretty thickly, actually, in just a row of single and maybe even another row of half double crochets or something of that nature. I have found from working with this yarn in the past on another shawl that it doesn't give quite the drape that I want it to. It's a very springy yarn. It pulls back in on itself, so it's not one that's going to block out and really open up that much. So if I put, for example, like 4 single crochets where it would have been a double over these chains, I'm really going to pack in the single crochets to help that stretch out some and to help it really feel a bit more open, because I do want all this work to be seen. As a shawl, it does work up fairly quickly because you do have all these kind of tranches of that network, of that webbing. And I love how it's coming together. I love how it's going to turn out, I am sure. Again, this is one that I've made several times before, but this time I'm actually going to keep it. So that yarn did come from a Hobby Lobby clearance, and one of my small goals that's just kind of in the back of my head is that I would love to be able to work through all of my Hobby Lobby clearance yarn before another Hobby Lobby clearance hits. So in that regard, I thought, what's a small project I could do with one of my Hobby Lobby clearance yarns and just bust that out. So I did pick up a 3-weight microfiber acrylic yarn, and I'll have it listed here. I can't find the ball band at the moment, but this was something I thought I could work up maybe some dust rags or some cleaning cloths. And I've tried a couple of different times to get going on projects with this, and I ended up having to cake it up. But finally, I just bit the bullet and said, hey, let's kill multiple birds with one stone. Let's use up this yarn, and let's try out some stitches as well. Crystal over at Bag O' Day is known for her stitch tutorials, among other things, and so I thought I would try out some of those. So this is a little cloth that I did finish this week. This is the Meadow Stitch, and I will have a link to it in the description. I like this stitch. I think it's really sweet. I think it's effective. It gives a little bit of a texture and a little bit of variation to that standard double crochet. You do put some double crochet in between your more textured rows. But that was a good small project to get my feet wet on in between my bigger projects. You know, it's nice to have something small that can be completed and you can just stretch yourself a little bit, but not too much. Another source that I'm using for some stitch patterns is my Crochet Stitch Dictionary by Sarah Hazel. And the one that I'm working on right now is the Silt Stitch, and mine looks like this so far. I think Crystal probably also has a tutorial for this, or you can find others online, I'm sure. But for this, I just used my book because it was a little bit simpler than trying to put in the correct search terms. So Silt Stitch here, and I like this stitch as well. I think it gives some beautiful texture, and that microfiber I think is going to be great for something straightforward. The other bird that I'm killing with this stone is I'm trying out my 4.5mm Prim hook. So this is one of the ones that came in my stocking, and I do have a video that just kind of shows a close-up view of what these look like compared to some of the others, for those of you that are curious about your standard straight hooks. I think it is a great hook for this DK yarn. In terms of use of it, I can see why people like the Prim. I can see how with that kind of bulbous head, it slips in really easily. And with that nice kind of cut in up at the throat, it makes it easy to control the yarn. So yeah, I'm definitely enjoying these hooks. Again, they are a little bit shorter than maybe your standard boy hook. And so for me, with kind of smaller hands, it works out. I don't feel like I'm missing anything in the length of it, but definitely enjoying this one, and I'm enjoying learning a few new stitches and having a few little completions along the way. Other than those, I'm continuing to work on my blank slate blanket, my reversible geometric blanket, that is, and I can list videos in the description if you're interested in that, or if you're interested in joining along and creating a blanket here at the beginning of the year just to start the year off with a lot of joy and adding some beauty into the world. So that is it for me this week. My question to you is, what are you working on this week? What are you crocheting? Are you working on a large project or on a small project? Thank you again to everyone who has liked and shared and commented and subscribed. All y'all who just hang out with me in the comments. You're so encouraging and so wonderful. And it really is such a joy and an honor to be part of your lives. I don't take y'all for granted. I really don't. So thank you so much for all of your thoughtfulness and your kindness. If I'm not your cup of tea, thank you so much for listening this long. I really do appreciate you, and I do hope I'll see you again soon. Bye.